I'm going to be discussing gay or same-sex marriage for LIS 661. This is my first APE, and my name is Martin Malakowski. The biggest concepts or questions I'm going to discuss about gay marriage revolve around, is it morally or ethically right? How do we determine that? How do our societies or cultures view it? And how do we determine this for ourselves? Basically, I'm asking, how can we tell if what we feel or what we view is correct? To explore these big concepts behind same-sex marriage, I'm going to be looking at ethical relativism. It states that moral rules are correct and that they determine which moral claims must also be true. Moral standards should be judged in relation to each person or society and are correct when they are deeply committed to it. The underlying concept behind these statements is that universal standards cannot and should not apply to everyone. There are two types. First is cultural relativism. It states that moral standards are determined by the culture or society in which they live, and the ultimate standard is determined by each culture's commitments. That means that an act is morally acceptable because of the ideals of the society where it happens, which means it is immoral to act against their ideals. Ethical subjectivism says that moral standards are determined by the individual and they choose what core values they retain. They have to approve of the action and their commitments must allow it for it to be a moral standard. When I looked at cultural relativism, I first looked at countries because your culture or society depends largely on when you live. There are 27 countries out of 195 countries that have legalized same-sex marriage. However, there are several that are transitioning, like Taiwan, who recently drafted a same-sex marriage bill, or Austria, where the same-sex marriage law recently came into place, despite opposition from a large part of their society, mainly the Catholic Church. However, their norms or their moral standards are changing as their society's commitments also change. There are several countries that still prohibit homosexuals completely, like Japan, who wants to reestablish a paternalistic society based on heterosexual marriages, and they think gay marriage shakes the foundation of how families should be in Japan and want to go back to conservative family model. Russia has an anti-gay, anti-propaganda laws that prohibits any positive mention of homosexuality in the presence of minors and simultaneously prohibits same-sex relationships. Muslims, particularly Islamic scholars, are of the opinion that same-sex gender is a sin. In the Quran, part of the religious teachings says that homosexuality should be punished, and the Prophet Muhammad is said to have taught that homosexuals should be killed, with the Sharia law making homosexuality a capital crime. Here is a map that shows the level of acceptance by different countries of LGBT members, whether they have criminalized or accepted them and made it legal to marry. Ethical subjectivism is based on individual moral standards. For example, religion. Strict Catholics says it goes against the Bible, and that's why they do not support gay marriage. Other times, it is just their personal belief that same-sex couples do not deserve the same rights as heterosexual couples, because marriage is between one man and one woman. This can also be considered a personal conviction in which they hold firm in their belief. Their statements are accurate because it follows their moral standards. Because they are committed to this idea, they are following their moral code and cannot be found in ethical violation under this theory.